and they're fairly well known for their degrees and proficiencies, and have judged for 25 plus years at the state and national level at various forms, from the proficiency selection to the proficiency judging at national convention like last week, and then selecting the American Stars. So that's a little bit of background on myself.
Excellent.
Hopefully we'll get this audio thing taken care of.
Brian, can you hear me now? Brian, test 1 2. Test
I'm
1 2.
starting to get some audio because I can hear my own feedback.
Test 1 2. Test 1 2.
I've got real low audio by you, Dr. Foster.
Okay, still working on it.
Yeah, I've got real low audio.
Have him try to push his mic headset in more. That makes me so frustrated.
All right, Brian. Can you check to see if it's the volume on your computer?
Okay. Let's see.
Check 1 2. Check 1 2.
It certainly may be. This is Amy Joe's computer, so I'm guessing on my end.
No problem. You can hear me some now if we talk directly, but what I'm guessing is that there is a setting to turn up the volume coming through your headset on your side. But that's okay. If you can hear me okay now, if we talk loud into the mic.
I can hear you plain as day. I've got it. I'm just getting some lot of feedback, but that's fine.
Sorry you're getting the feedback. I don't understand that. We're not getting feedback, interestingly enough, here. So I don't know what to do to fix that. One thing that could be happening is that the speaker source on your computer is that it's going to your computer instead of your headphones, or going to both. But I'm not positive on that. We'll go ahead and try, and what we will do is mute our mic when you're answering a question to see if that will help. I'm going to ask the first student to come forward and get into the seat, and they've developed some questions that they're really interested to learn from you.
Okay, Mr. Hendrickson, we're curious about, because you moved from an older program or from one program to another, how quickly do you implement your own ways of doing things? And what do you decide to change in the new program with kids who are used to one way, and then you want to try to implement your way? Like, what do you take from it? And that pretty much asked the question, I think.
And just to start off, this is Matt Ryder, and he's a junior in our program, 2017 student teacher.
That's right.
Okay, here's the challenge. I'm getting, Dr. Foster, that repeated about 3 times in my headset. So we'll see if I can get his question answered along with
Okay, Brian, obviously there's some tech issues on that end, and that's okay. What we're going to change then, instead of having the students ask the questions, I'm going to type the questions to you in the chat feature. You can read them and just answer them. How does that work?
let's try it. While you're setting that up, Dr. Foster, let me just give the little basic background that I think that no matter where these young folks go out and teach, there's a couple basic things you have to understand. And I'm going to mute myself here or turn it way, way down because I'm getting all that backbeat. But I understand you can hear me. The biggest thing is you got to understand there's a difference between a degree and a proficiency. And I was hoping to get some input from you folks, but with our audio challenge, I'm just going to go ahead and do the old style, ask the question, answer my own question. And that is, your degree is all encompassing. It takes into event all your FFA, all your academics, whereas a proficiency is simply limited to one of those 49 areas. The other big one that people struggle with is the difference between an SAE and a proficiency. And it boils down very simply to an SAE is simply every student in your program's best project. And that could be everything from just a job shadow to working at the school in some capacity for you in your greenhouse, or if you have an animal lab, to the proficiency is actually the competition. So whereas we strive to have every kid have an SAE, it's almost a little bit of the athletic thought process is you select your top ones to become your representatives for a proficiency at your state and national level. So that is huge. Now, to answer Matt's question is, I tried to implement my SAEs because it's part of the 3-ring model. And I don't care what state you're in, that's the nice part about ag education, is that you're able to take that 3-ring model into any state and they recognize it. Now, how you implement it is going to kind of depend on which state and what kind of system you're in. In Wisconsin, I was basically everything. I was department chair, I wrote curriculum, I did it all as far as having total autonomy and total credit for everything that took place there. And basically the only dividing line was sign up. So you had total authority. In fact, I taught in my introduction to ag class basically almost 10 to 12 weeks of the FFA handbook to all my freshmen. Here in Frederick, Maryland, and in Maryland in general, being a county system, I don't have that authority because I don't write the curriculum. So there's a lot of ways you have to work with the system and tie in other than the way I did it previously. So, but you want to get them implemented and started because it's one of the 3-ring models. Greatest struggle changing to a different school, probably as I just mentioned, is I went from being in a small, real rural Wisconsin school where I had, like I said, authority and autonomy over everything, to having very little curriculum input here in Frederick, Maryland. And as far as class design, it goes through a pretty rigorous process to go through all the administrative channels. So probably the biggest hurdle isn't the FFA component. It's learning how to adapt to the system that's in place so that you can still get to the end goals that you want to achieve with your Ag Ed and FFA program. Can you show that question one more time? An experience that challenged me. Well, it was probably more of a person, and that was I had quite a unique and pleasure to begin my teaching career back in Wisconsin with Kevin Keith. Many of you know Kevin. He's out at the National FFA Center and is a wonderful resource for National FFA and to compete and with his students back when we had, I believe it was only 19 categories. That was challenging. In the state of Wisconsin, when I left, we were getting anywhere from 800 to 850 state applications turned in for one of those coveted 49 areas. So that was a challenge just to get out of our state, because we had 200 and approximately 70 schools that offered an ag education program. Probably the most rewarding is always seeing the students and the parents, and then when your administrators were there, faces just absolutely light up when that young person's name was called as a state or national winner. It's something I'll never forget. It's the most rewarding feeling. And in fact, I just had a really unique experience. Our current American Star in placement was a young man I started with in junior high. A former student of mine took over that program in Wisconsin, and she ended up taking him, and he was named the American Star in placement. And just sitting in the background, listening to it all and watching it all was quite a pleasurable experience for me. The best way to do it, in my opinion, is through, hopefully you've either got a good advisory council or an alumni or both. Your community support is absolutely huge. And then the one thing that I've learned, and this goes for all 34 years I've taught, is, like I just mentioned, when you got a state or national winner and you got your administration there, like they're invited, and they come along and they see the culmination of what you were trying to sell them in their office back how many months ago, it really sinks in. It really drives home the point that the SAE is a vital component of our ag education and FFA program. And then you can always point them to the 3-ring model, and there's some awesome resources on the National FFA website that we put in when we made some revisions to make it easier for administrators, parents, alumni to understand what a good SAE is. What do new teachers lack when preparing kids for SAEs? Probably the diversity. If you look at the 49 areas that the National FFA puts up, it's quite diverse, and a lot of people feel a little bit overwhelmed on how they can be so knowledgeable in all 49 areas. Number one, you don't have to, because there's really only two applications. There's a placement application and there's an entrepreneurial, and all 49 will fit into them. Number two, you can turn to your local state professional group. Most of them will have people, and then of course the national group will provide plenty of good resources. And my suggestion would be to start building an archive of good examples that you can look at and then share with students. And lastly, once you start to get embedded and involved in the community, tap into those business leaders, tap into those entrepreneurs in your community, and they'll be glad to provide work experience for your kids. You're welcome. Program delivery. I have never experienced that. I would imagine that's what a poor teacher does, is deliver the curriculum and the content and the FFA in a manner that isn't conducive to their classroom and their school. Obviously, if you're delivering that in a poorly guided way, you're probably not going to last very long in any part of the teaching field, let alone ag education. Well, the first steps I would recommend that you do is, after you've developed a sense of how whether it's an independent school district, a county school district, is what can you do within the normal class day? And as you know, with Public Law 740, we're able to do it because we're intercurricular. However, some of our curriculum supervisors in that are not always keen to that idea. And at that point, you need to then develop, and I've seen and I've used over the years, various types of pizza party evenings where we'll get together from a certain time to a certain time after school. Probably going to have to at least give the basic instruction right in class to all of them so that they know what they are and are aware. Because if you just said, gee, tonight we're going to have, or next week we're going to have an SAE record book night, to teenagers today, and you guys are a lot closer to them than I am, that doesn't sound real appealing. So you're probably going to have to implement it at least on a very, very watered down, scaled down version to your classes. Big hook for this program, especially the proficiency end, is you tell them, hey, if you go on and take your SAE and develop it and send in the proficiency application, and that's why I gave you the distinction at the start of this presentation, there's money. And let's face it, what motivates a lot of these young folks today is money. And that money can be used for it doesn't have to go to their SAE. It doesn't have to go to an agricultural program at all. They can take it, like I had one young man, he did these and he put a down payment on a Harley Davidson motorcycle. So that's a big carrot that you could throw out there as a way to get them to do their record books on a consistent basis, and then hopefully want to one day send it into the state as a state proficiency. Sure. Let me just preface it though, folks, by I've never experienced, as long as you have a good, well-rounded, thought-out project and plan, and show them how it is part of the three-ring circle, that I haven't heard that as a major stumbling block in too many schools. Now, if you have, I wish you'd share with me, because I've put on presentations to quite a few states and have done quite a bit of work with folks across the country. And as long as you could show them the record keeping component, the career component, with the financial requirements now coming into our schools, I think the SAE flows very nicely in that kind of sequence. And I don't think, unless you just have an administrator that's dead set against any kind of extracurriculars, and for the most part, ag and FFA, that it's going to be as big a concern as you're possibly thinking. But again, that's only my opinion. I would agree with that assessment. And you do run into some of that. But I think, again, with an alumni, an advisory group, an active FFA, it's very hard for these administrators when they see you publishing things in the local newspaper, like our chapter here in Maryland. We've got a Facebook, we've got an Instagram, we've got more type of social media for people to see our results, that it becomes very hard for them to want to cut our programs when the public is paying the bill for through their tax dollars. And they're saying, wait a minute, that FFA chapter, those FFA members are constantly in the news for good things. Why would you want to eliminate or cut back in that particular area? The administrator is going to say, it's getting harder and harder and harder to get either the local community or the county to put up dollars. And that becomes, that's where it becomes a struggle. I fully agree with that. Oh my gosh, no, you guys are, I've always had an open door policy. I'll be glad to email my contact information to Katie or Dr. Foster, whichever one you want. I'll give you my cell phone number. Please feel free to contact me. I believe in this program wholeheartedly. I think it's one of the greatest individual tools we have in the FFA. It can bring you instant success because you can get your feet in the door as young teachers and set a curriculum and set up yourself for success. And so if I can help in any way, shape, or form, I'm more than willing. So Katie, Dr. Foster, who would you like me to send my contact information to? Will do. Thank you very much.